closing keynote on unlock possibilities. It's an inspiring session on unlocking possibilities, and in the next 30 minutes, we will explore how to break free from limitations, tap into our potential, and discover new horizons of opportunity. Whether you're seeking professional growth, business success, or simply a fresh perspective on life, this session is designed to empower you with the tools and insights to unlock a world of possibilities. And to close the first half of the day, we have with us Aparna Rao, CBS Center Lead India at Cargill Business Services. With over 2 decades of experience in the GCC industry, she excels in cultivating customer-focused and accountable teams that consistently achieve outstanding results. She participates in esteemed communities such as the NASCOM GCC Council for Karnataka for 23 to 25 and the AMC GCC Committee, aiming to enhance the industry and provide value. Outside of her professional pursuits, Aparna cherishes her time spent with her husband and daughter in Bangalore, and beyond her professional achievements, she also spends time engaging in volunteer work, exploring new cuisines, and embracing personal growth through various activities. It gives me great pleasure to bring on stage Aparna Rao, who will deliver the closing keynote for this session. Thank you. Over to you, Aparna.
Thank you so much, Shonari. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm incredibly honored and excited to be here before this amazing gathering and network of strong, talented, and dynamic women. Each of you is a force to be reckoned with. And today I want to spend some time unlocking ambition, unlocking empowerment, so that we can take our careers to new heights. I would love to start with a visualization exercise. It might sound a little unorthodox, but can I request everyone to please close your eyes? Now, I can't see if you've done that or not, but I'm really hoping you get into this exercise. Please close your eyes and really, really visualize this. Yeah, you're late for a flight. You're running through the airport, you're running to the gate, and are just in time to get into the plane. The pilot comes out of the cockpit and says, "Oh, you made it." You smile, you get into your seat and take a nap. You're woken up for some refreshments by the airplane staff, and you'd really appreciate it to get some good food in your belly. You land safely, take a taxi, and go to the biggest tech conference in the country. You go in, you have a front row seat, that's awesome. And the CEO of the biggest, newest, latest, hottest tech disruptor comes on stage and gives one of the best speech you've heard in a very, very long time. Can I ask you all to please open your eyes now? And of course, I can't hear your responses, but just for yourself, how many of you imagined the pilot to be a lady? How many of you imagined the CEO of the tech disruptor to be a woman? And how many of you saw the person who gave you refreshments from the airline staff to be a man? It's actually a very powerful reminder and something I use a lot as I speak to people or even with family and friends to actually identify and remind ourselves of the familiarity bias we have. And today, while we're gathered here, it's great to acknowledge the progress we've made. You know, we've challenged stereotypes, we've paved way for future generations, but there's still such a long way to go, right? I read this somewhere that there are more CEOs called John than there are female CEOs. I'll repeat that. There are more CEOs named John in the world than there are female CEOs. And I think that's the reason why it's so important for us to continue to break stereotypes, to overcome social boundaries, to pursue diverse careers and leadership roles. And there is no magic wand to make this happen, right? But there are some key principles or tips or ideas or main points that I can discuss about in the next few minutes. And the first one is to embrace our uniqueness. Our journey is ours alone. And a lot of times we compare it with others, but our uniqueness is our strength. Our strength is also to embrace our individuality, our skills, our passions, and our experiences. Things that makes us different are the things that make us extraordinary. So how do we learn to own our uniqueness and let it shine in everything we do? One of the managers who I think was probably the best one I had in my career actually told me this, that Aparna, don't try and change. You're trying very hard to fit in. You are different, you think from your heart, and you stand out from the rest of the leadership team I have. And your empathy is your superpower, not your weakness. Nobody had ever told me something like that, you know? And I was trying to change myself to fit in, to be part of the group, and to be liked by everybody else. And it reminds me of a quote by Dr. Seuss, right? Why fit in when you're born to stand out? And there was another incident which stands out not once. I've done this throughout my career, and probably I will not do that anymore. But I used to wear a sari and not color my hair so that the grace would show, so that I would be perceived as older, so that people would take me more seriously and not look at me as a little girl. And I'm sure most of you have faced a situation where you're probably the only woman in the boardroom, right? And I know many women who've gone through similar journeys where they would let their grace show and wear a sari to look older. And I had a mentor who was a senior leader in global procurement, and she told me, before you enter the boardroom, take a minute, remind yourself that you're not a little girl. You deserve to be in that boardroom and own your space. And I do that today. I take a minute and just pump myself up and remember to own my space. And what I mean by own your space is, next time you're at a boardroom or any meeting where you are part of, just observe. You will see that mostly men will take a lot of space and women will huddle up in a corner and take notes, or you not even sit at the table but sit behind. It's taken me a lot of reinforcing and mental conditioning that when I walk in, and of course we're doing this virtually, but if you've seen me physically, now I try and take as much space, the breadth and width, but that did not come naturally. So I think we need to remind ourselves that we are the architects of our own career, and not to underestimate the impact that each of us here that we are today that can make, um, each of us here has the ability to drive change, to innovate, to lead. That brings me to the next point. Dream big. Our aspirations should never be limited by what we can do today. It should be guided by our imagination of what we can do tomorrow. So don't be afraid to dream big, to set those big, hairy, audacious goals. And of course, break it to what you can do, actionable steps every day. I'm sure many of you have read that, try and improve yourself 1% every day, and over a year, you can see significant progress, right? And to take risks, actually, to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. There's a great book I read 15 years ago, and that's honestly been a life changer. It's called Feel the Fear, but Do It Anyway, by Susan Jeffers. And the book sort of tells you what's the worst that can happen. And if it does happen, can you handle it or not? And the reality is all of us can handle it. So feel the fear and do it anyway. We cannot become who we want to be by continuing or remaining to be who we are, right? And that takes me to a wonderful Japanese ritual called misogi, which is getting more and more prominence these days. It's a challenge to reset your mind, your spirit and body to cultivate resilience. But for you to be able to do that, you must embrace discomfort. And the idea is, if you don't test your limits actually shrink. And the only way to grow mentally, physically, spiritually, or financially is to keep pushing that edge of that preconceived boundaries, to test your body, to strengthen your mind. And there are just two rules for it. One, it has to be really, really hard. There has to be a 50% chance, 50% of chance of success. And the second is it has to be safe, meaning it can't be something reckless where you'll die. So it could be like a 20-mile hiking. It could be a couple of minutes of ice cold water plunge. And if a misogi is hard enough, it will really push you to a breaking point where you say, enough, I cannot do this anymore, right? But that's when, if you keep pushing just a little longer, you'll realize that that was not your limit. And we have sold ourselves short. And that leads to another question. If you've sold yourself short here, then in how many other areas of your life are we selling ourselves short? And there's this influencer called Jade Bonacolta. Yeah, she's the one who's doing a lot of publicity about this misogi concept, that whether you accomplish your misogi or not is not relevant. Whether yours is harder than your friends or easier is not relevant. What is relevant is you keep pushing beyond what your limit is. And Jade, the influencer I spoke about um, how her mental toughness became really strong. All the small things, right? What stresses in our life every day, what makes us feel inconvenient, those things suddenly are put into perspective. All the opportunities that we pass up because we don't want to take a risk suddenly feels within reach. So my question to all of you is, what is your next Misogi? It can be anything, as long as, yeah, it's safe and you have only a 50% of succeeding. So there's another great book, which is called The Comfort Crisis by Michael Easter. So that helps us move out of our comfort zone. That brings me to the next point of networking. I know the last panel, I got a chance to hear some of it. And how many of us have heard this growing up, that औरत ही औरत की दुश्मन होती है? I don't know about you, but all the TV serials seem to suggest that, right? You had multiple women fighting all day, either in the house or over some random guy. Uh, and I always thought these women deserved better. When I grew up, a lot of my friends were actually boys because I thought I don't need any of this drama. It was much later when I was in my 20s, I realized, damn, actually, one of my support systems, some of my realist friendships, or the best advice came from the women in my life. And today, a few decades later, I cannot imagine life without the magic of sisterhood. So, how do we be there for each other, right? And there's just one word: support. Whether it's going through the daily grind, whether it's lifting each other up, all of us can do that. And that's the secret. We're not alone. We keep thinking we're alone on the journey, but if we look around us, there are women who are not just our peers, our friends, our allies, our mentors. And if we can build a community where we lift each other up, where we celebrate our victories, where we support each other through our challenges, that would be amazing. It's important to amplify the women around us. If we notice at the boardroom table, there's someone who's being interrupted, not being able to finish what she's saying, if we just stand up for her and say, hey, let her finish, and most likely you're the two people in the room, right? How can we make a difference with one person? We don't have to talk about changing the whole world, but just with one person, excuse me, where we start joining forces instead of competing. How can we, going back to the Misogi concept, approach someone, even if we're scared, but someone that we truly admire, and say, hey, I need some help. I need some mentorship from you. And will you be able to spend some time doing that for me? And there are lots of benefits of mentorship. I'll not go into it. There's research available that people with mentors are 5 times more likely to get promoted, or 87% more confident, or retention increases from 15 to 38%, etc. But what I will spend time on is an idea that I learned many years ago that has really helped me. To make a list of 3 categories: acquaintances, allies, and advocates. Acquaintances are people that we probably say hello and chit chat a little bit, some small talk, but we don't know them really well. Allies are, of course, what we speak about, people that we support and lean on. Advocates are those who will put their reputation on stake and really push for you to get a job, or really vouch for you or speak about you in rooms where you're not there. And as you draw the list, it's natural that acquaintances are the largest group, allies maybe a little lesser, and advocates probably 1 or 2. The trick is, how do we start moving the allies to the advocate buckets and the acquaintances to the allies bucket? And I think one of the esteemed panelists in the last round spoke about it at the end. It has to be a two-way street, right? If you can be an ally or an advocate for someone else, it will come back to you. The universe is great that way. And the next step of this list of acquaintances, allies, and advocates is, can you add another flavor of it, of company, within the profession? For example, if you're a finance person or an IT person, and within the industry, which could be agriculture, pharma, etc. And then you see it's skewed again. So how do you bring a balance there? And it takes effort. It takes very intentional work to build that network. The next point is resilience that I want to touch about. And I think we spoke about it a little bit when the concept of misogi was delved into. That of course helps with resilience, and having a great network and support system also is great. But somewhere the resilience also has to come from within. And there's a great quote that says, she remembered who she was and the game changed. Sometimes I need to remind myself 10 times a day, but our journey will have challenges. It's not about avoiding those obstacles, it's about overcoming them, right? And I think I mentioned it a couple of times in this last 10 minutes that there will be many times that we'll be the only woman in the room. There'll be many times where we are underestimated on how we dress, how we speak, how we look. There'll be people hostile. And it's important to be resilient in those scenarios, because each setback actually is a lesson, you know? It makes our life interesting. If your story was just straight with no events, I don't think anyone would read such kind of a book or watch a movie. It's when there are ups and downs. Those are the people we admire. Those are the stories we tell. So I think it's important to remind ourselves that each setback actually is a stepping stone to where we want to be. And we may not be able to control everything that happens to us, but we can control how we respond and how we actually use it as a push towards our next step. Investing in ourselves, of course, continuous improvement, continuous learning, embracing a growth mindset, seizing opportunities to learn are very important, right? And it can be anything, whether it's self-education, you're watching watching videos, watching movies on concepts you want to improve on, or reading a lot of books. I've mentioned a couple of them today. Whether you take classes, training courses, just 30 minutes a day or a couple of hours a week, right? Just investing in ourselves, because we tend to put ourselves last. And whatever your reason could be, whether it's for personal gratification, to discover a new skill, stimulation, or just advancement in jobs. If we could spend some time for ourselves, just a new technology, a new skill, a new course, a new activity, I think just like the 1% concept, we'll see will come a long way. And the global landscape of development of women empowerment has also come a long way. You know, where there's a gender pay gap, there are many laws, many countries are now looking at leadership representation is being talked upon, and it's improving in every company. In fact, even parental leaves, right, to challenge gender stereotypes. A lot of companies are expanding their leave policies as well. There are huge efforts to encourage women in STEM through mentorship programs, scholarships, etc. Women's entrepreneurship. There are organizations that are promoting gender equality through advocacy or even partnership with different governments, etc. And the remote work has really, really helped, offering more flexibility as well. But despite these, challenges still remain, right? There's still discrimination, there's still harassment, there's still cultural norms and biases. So to wrap up, I want to talk about unlocking our mind. If you can think it, you can create it, right? So I will quickly do another visualization exercise that will require you to close your eyes, please. Yeah. So imagine yourself 5 or 10 years from now on the cover of Forbes. Your picture is on the front page. You look amazing. Your name is in bold. There's a brief description of you, and there's a whole story inside. What does it say? What are the adjectives used to describe you? What are your achievements? What do you look like? What does your posture and your clothes look? How does your schedule look? That leads to the question, what would you do if you weren't afraid? Can you envision a future where your aspirations have no restrictions or no bounds, and you're playing such a key role in shaping a more inclusive professional world? Really visualize this, please. And open your eyes. So you can do this whenever you need inspiration and you're stuck. It helps me a lot. I know you'll probably need a nice, good 15 or 20 minutes to do this and write it down. It'll remind you that you're strong, you're talented, and you're capable of doing amazing things. And it doesn't have to be imagination. If we can imagine it, we can do it. So unlock your mind. Show the world what we can do. We can we can conquer any challenge that comes our way. So I know there's a little bit of homework, but if you could just focus on one thing that you can do to get closer to what the person you saw in this Forbes visioning exercise, one misogi that pushes you outside your comfort zone, one woman you can amplify and support, make a list of acquaintances, allies, and advocates for your company, profession, and industry. And as we step out of the session today, let's carry with us the determination that we will create, we will challenge, and we'll build the resilience to endure. Yeah, your journey is unique to you. Make it bold, make it vibrant, make it yours, uniquely yours, and show that when it comes to the corporate world, women can do it all. Yeah. So thank you for being the remarkable women you all are. The world is ready for your brilliance, so don't dim it. Shine on. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Aparna, for that wonderful, wonderful talk. I absolutely love the quote you shared. It is one of my favorites too. Yes, women need to remember who they are so they can change the game, and so we will. And with that, we come to the close of the first half of HerRising 2023.